All right, so today our learning objective is that we can translate 1- and 2-step equations and then go ahead and solve them. So if you have not already on Schoology, I have posted the guided notes as well as a copy of this chart I used to give you some keywords and phrases to look for when we are translating these 1- and 2-step equations to help you translate them. So the guided notes as well as this chart are on Schoology if you want to print them out and fill them out as we go. Otherwise, I do know we do not all have printer capabilities, so if you just want to take notes as we go to submit a picture of those notes, that will also work. All right, so some keywords and phrases that help tell us what operation we're talking about. So we have addition. So the sum is the answer in addition. So if I see sum, I know that we're going to be adding some stuff. More than is going to mean that we are having however many more than something else. So we're going to add those two together. Increased by, so we are adding a number to increase it. So addition. Total, you're putting two parts together. So you have to add them together to get the total. Plus is just another word for addition, and all together, again, we're putting pieces together. In order to combine pieces, we'd have to add. Subtraction, the word difference means the answer in subtraction, so that's going to allude to subtraction. If you look at these next two, I have less than and subtracted from. Those are both going to talk about subtraction, but if you see their stars, the words like less than and subtracted from are going to be in the reverse order. So if you're saying 15 less than or subtracted from X, what that tells me is I have X or whatever number they give you, and I am taking 15 from that. So less than and subtracted from are going to be said in the reverse order because you are taking 15 less than, so you're taking 15 away from that X. 15 subtracted from, it's from that X. So it's going to be written in the reverse order. So when you're writing it in numerical form, you'll have to pay attention to those two. So minus, again, is another word for subtraction. Decrease by, you're losing some. So you have to subtract however many you are decreasing or losing. Multiplications, times is just another word for multiplication. Product is the answer in multiplication. Twice is multiplying by 2, so you're doubling it. Triple is multiplying by 3. Of is one of those ones you'll see a lot, especially as you get into higher maths. Of, I might would star the word of, means multiplication. So of something times whatever. Per, so you're increasing at a constant rate. So that's going to imply that we're multiplying. Division, so divided by, just another word to say division. Quotient, the answer in division. Half, you're separating it into two equal groups. Third, you're separating it to 3 equal groups. And I just said that same word, so separate. You're taking it, putting it into groups. So separate is going to also imply that you are doing division. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to stop talking. At this point, though, go ahead, pause this, fill out this chart, write these examples down. These will definitely help you as we go through translating these equations. And then when you're done, unpause this, and I'm going to go ahead and start, wrong direction, with some examples. All right, so on this first one, I see the product of a number and 7 is 63. So product, we just said in those examples that is the answer in multiplication. So the product of a number, we don't know what that number is, and -7 is 63. We didn't put that on your chart. I would add that it's going to always tell you is equals. So the product of a number and -7 is 63. So that's our equation. Then we can go ahead and solve it. So now we just have to remember what is our inverse of multiplication. That's right, division. So we're going to divide both sides by -7. And I don't know what I wrote. 64. Oops. 63 divide 7, because what I do to one side, I do to both. And then n is going to be equal to 63 divided by 7, and that is going to be 9. But because I have a positive and a negative, my answer is going to be a negative 9. Awesome. So 2, that was one of our starred forms. We have subtracted from, so that means 10 is coming out of something. So it's minus 10, something minus 10. So from a number, so we don't know what it's being subtracted from, is 15. Is, we just said, add to our chart, is equals. So is 15. So then we can go ahead. We know how to solve our one-step equations. N minus 10 is 15. So our inverse of subtraction we know is addition. What I do to one side, I have to do to both sides. Those two cancel, and then we're left with n equals 15 plus 10 is 25. Awesome. 2/5 of a number. Of was on our chart. What did of mean? That's right. So 2/5 of, so multiplication, a number is, we know, is equal to negative 12. So we can go ahead and say 2/5, and we know a number next to a variable implies multiplication equals negative 12. So in order to get rid of multiplication, we're going to divide. We know dividing by the fraction is the same as multiplying by a reciprocal, so I'm just going to multiply both sides by that reciprocal, which we know a reciprocal is that fraction flipped. So 10 over, this would be 10 over 10n, which is just 1n. So 10 over 10n is equal to 12 over 1 times 5 over 2. 12 times 5 is 60. 1 times 2 is 2. 60 divided by 2 is 30. So 1n is equal to 30. I'm going to go ahead and have you pause that because I did work into 4. So pause that and fill that out if you're still writing, because in a second I'm just going to erase it so I can jump to 4 and have room for 4. Awesome. So by now you should have erased that, or you should have written that because I'm going to erase that. All right, so on 4, we have 8% of a number is 20. So of, we know is multiplication. So 8% of a number is 20. I want you to start this. We cannot multiply by a percent. So before I multiply this, because of we know means multiplication, we have to turn that percent into a decimal. So we know to turn a percent into a decimal, we have to take that decimal, move it 1, 2 to the left. So 0.8 of a number is 20. All right. So then we can go ahead, start that, figure it out. So 0.08 times n equals 20. Our inverse of multiplication is division. So we're going to divide both sides by 0.08. So n is equal to 20 divided by 0.08. So 20 would go into the house. 0.08 is going to go on the outside before I can divide. My divisor on the outside cannot have any decimals. So we have to move it 1, 2 to the right. So this also has to go 1, 2 to the right. Because I do not have any numbers there, we'd have to put zeros in their places. I know 8 goes into 20 twice, which is 16. 20 minus 16 is 4. Bring down one of those zeros. 8 goes into 40 5 times. 40 minus 40 is 0. 8 minus 0, or 8 goes into 0. 0. times 0 minus 0 is 0. So n is equal to 250. Awesome. So next one, I have the sum of twice a number and 17 is 1. So right off the bat, I see sum and I see twice a number. So what that tells me is that I'm going to have 2 steps. So sum and twice a number, what do those mean? Awesome. So sum means addition and twice a number means we're multiplying by 2. So 2n twice a number plus 17, because sum is equals -1. The sum of twice a number and 17 is -1. So then we can go ahead and solve it. So 2n plus 17 equals -1. We know with our two-step equations, we're working the order of operations backwards. So starting at the bottom of my order of operation, I'm going to get rid of addition and subtraction first. So we're going to get rid of plus 17 and say minus 17 on both sides. 17 minus 17 cancels. So we have 2n on the left. And -1 minus 17 is the same as keep change plus a negative. So adding 2 negatives is going to make that a bigger negative. So 2n is equal to -18. We can divide both sides by that 2. And then n is equal to -18 divided by 2. 18 divided by 2 is 9. A positive and a negative is going to be a -9. Awesome. I'm going to move this here. So that's out of our way to do this next one. All right. 9 less than the product of a number and 4 is 135. All right. So we know 9 less than the product of a number. So we know less than, we know product of, so product and of both tell us multiplication, and 4, we know is. So the product of a number and 4. Well, we know less than, that first off tells us that we're taking 9 from something, because that's one of our stars that says the way they tell you is backwards. So 9 less than tells me I'm taking 9 from something. I don't know what until I keep reading, but it's 9 from that. So then 9 less than the product of a number and -4. We know the product is the answer in multiplication. So a number and -4. So number times -4. So you could say -4n, n times -4. Either way, I'm going to put -4n. You don't need the parentheses because we know multiplication comes before. But just so, and we know that number next to a variable implies multiplication, but either way. So -4n, because that implies multiplication, minus 9 is 35. Then we can go ahead and solve it. Again, we know two-step equations. We work our order of operations backwards. So in order to get rid of subtraction, we would add, because addition and subtraction are on the bottom of that order of operations. So plus 9, this cancels, minus 9 plus 9 cancels out to 0. So then we have -4n is equal to 35 plus 9 is 35 plus 5 is 44. All right, so then we have n times -4 is equal to 44. We get rid of multiplication with its inverse, which is division. So divide -4, divide -4, cancel, because -4 divided by -4 is just 1. So n, or 1n, is equal to 44 divided by -4. Well, 44 divided by 4 is 11. and a positive divided by a negative, 1 positive, 1 negative, negative 11. If they're the same, it's positive. Awesome. All right, so then I have 7 more than the quotient. So more than, we know means what? Addition. The quotient, what does that mean? Division of a number and 3. So equals 11. So we know whatever it is equals 11. All right, so 7 more than the quotient of a number and 3. So number and 3 division. We when we have quotient of a number and 3, if it's a 3 and a number, that order is important. Whatever comes first, that's what goes on top. So when it says a number and 3, you put number over 3. Quotient means division, and then the order matters from top to bottom, number and 3. And then 7 more than that. I'm going to scroll down so that I can leave that one there, but also work this one out. So now we're going to do our solve, and I'm doing it down here because I wanted to leave that work in case you still needed it. All right, so 7 more than, we know more than is addition. Quotient we said is division of a number and 3. So of a number and 3, we kept it in that same order and added 7 more than that equals 11. All right, and if you had put the 7 first, we know with addition, the commutative property says they're the same. So if you kept it in the order that it said that, so 7 more than 7 plus, commutative property, it'll still give you the same thing. So we have n over 3 plus 7 equals 11. So again, we know we're working our order of operations backwards, so we're going to get rid of the bottom ones first, so start at addition and subtraction. So in order to get rid of plus 7, we're going to minus 7. All right, so this cancels, and we have n divided by 3 equals 11 minus 7 is 4, and we get rid of division with multiplication. So we're going to multiply both sides by 3. You could say 3 over 3n equals 12, and 3 over 3 is simply 1n, or n equals 12. Awesome. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to pause this video. I do not want you to solve it. I do not want you, actually I do. I don't want you to solve it yet. I just want you to go through the back of these notes. So 8 through 15. And it's not going to fit on one page. So if you are not writing on the guided notes with me, you can pull it up and do the back of the page. Or here, I'll do this. 8 through 10, pause. 11 through 13, pause. 14 through 15, pause. Okay, so you might have to go back 10 seconds to do that. But what I want you to do is I want you to go through the translations. I want you to circle the parts that tell you what operation it implies, and then I want you to do the equation. Then I want you to unpause it and go through it with me. And once you have checked your equations, I'm going to ask you to pause again, solve them, and then go through them with me. So right now, and I'll do it one more time, and then I'll go over them because by then you should have paused. I want you to circle the parts of the translations to tell you what operation is being done, and solve the, or not, sorry, don't solve the equation. Write what the equation is, unpause, go through that with me, and then I will ask you to solve. All right, so 8 through 10, pause. And this is for my people that do not have the guided notes printed. 11 through 13, pause. And 14 and 15, pause. 1, 2. Okay, so by now, I'm giving you like 2 chances there to go ahead, pause these, work through these. So we're going to go through the parts of it that tell me what operation we're doing. We're going to do the equations, and then I'm going to ask you again to pause and work through the equations. I want you to make sure that your equations are right before you go ahead and solve them. So in the first one, I have the difference between half a number and 11 is 25. So I have difference. That tells me subtraction. I have half a number. That tells me is I have half. So we're dividing by 2. So you could say n divided by 2 or half times 2. Well, they're the same thing. And 11. So equals is negative 25. So difference between half a number and 11. So we could say n over 2, half a number, and 11. This is another one. The order is important. Once it says half a number and 11, you have your half a number, whether you did it like this, half a number, or n divided by 2. Either way, you're going to get half of that number. Because even if you multiply n by half, you're going to get n over 2. Both give you half of a number. So half a number and half a number and 11. So half a number first minus 11 is negative 25. Did you get that right? Awesome. If you didn't, that's okay. Let's keep going. So I have a number subtracted from, we know this means subtraction. I'm going to put a star because subtracted from was one of our important ones that says, when it says a number subtracted from, it means that we're taking that number from something. And then it's going to tell me what it's taking it from. That's the one we starred because it's said in the reverse order. So a number subtracted from, we're taking that number from something. We don't know what it is, but they're about to tell us. From 14. So from 14 is 2. Awesome. Did you get that? Did you do it the wrong order? Do you see what you did now? Awesome. All right. So now I have 10, 3/4 of a number. Of means what? That's right, multiplication. So let's say 3/4 of a number, and I'm going to put it next to a number because we know that means multiplication. So 3/4 of a number decreased by, what did you say that meant? Subtraction. So decreased by 19 is, what did you say that was? Equals negative 1. Awesome. So then we have the sum of negative 1/3 of a number, and 16 is 11. So sum, answer and addition of is multiplication. So 1/3 of a number. So the sum of negative 1/3. So there's your of a number and 16. So as long as you have 1/3 of a number, we know we're multiplying 1/3 and a number. Which one, whether you have that or 16 first, doesn't matter because we know our commutative property says in addition, or doesn't matter. So as long as you're adding 1/3 times the number and 16 and saying that it is equal to 11 is equal, and 11 is 11. All right, so 60% of a number. So of times minus subtraction is equals. All right, the one thing, did you turn your percent into a decimal? Because we cannot multiply percents. You didn't? Is that the one thing you did wrong? You want to pause it and fix it? Awesome. So 60%, We know 1, 2 to the right, so 60% is 0.6. So 60% or 0.6, because 60% is that as a decimal of a number. So times a number, or 6.6n, because we know number next to a variable implies multiplication. You put a parenthesis there if you want, because the answer of that, minus 17 minus the subtraction, is negative 65. It's kind of like picking out those key words that we talked about and just like writing all of what they mean in order. Unless we have one of those special ones where order is different. But that's why we have those stuff. All right. So now I have 13, 14, and 15. All right. So the sum of a number we know is addition. And the sum of a number and 7, so we're adding a number and 7. The sum, so the answer of that divided by negative 3. So that answer divided by negative 3. So we need to put the whole thing in parentheses so that we know negative 3 is being divided by, or all of that is being divided by negative 3, is 2. That one may have been a little bit trickier. Remember, we know that if we wrote sum divided by negative 3, that's our sum. So that one was a little bit trickier because you might have put 3 under n or 7, but it should look like this. Awesome. So on 14, you should have underlined quotient. We know quotient means division. 5 less than, we know less than is subtraction. And 5 less than a number and 6 is negative 4. So the quotient of what? So what are we dividing? 5 less than a number, so 5 less than the number. And so that's where we know we're now dividing 6. Because remember, division, the order matters. So when it says the quotient of this and this. So 5 less than a number, put that up there, and 6 is 4, or negative 4. Awesome. Did you get that? All right, so then we have a number squared. We're going to skip this one, and I will double check on your homework. But if you have ones that say squared, we are going to go over those, but we have not yet. So squared you can skip on the homework. All right, so now we've gone through all of those. I want you to once again pause them. And now that you know you have the right equations, I want you to go back through and solve them. I'll give you just a second to pause this and work through it. And then in a second, I am going to start because at this point, at this point, you should now have already paused it and you should be following along with your work. So we have n divided by 2 minus 11 equals negative 25. All right, so we do know order of operations backwards. So we're going to get rid of that subtraction before the division. So we're going to add 11 to both sides. We have n divided by 2 is equal to negative 25 plus positive 11. Positive and negative subtract and keep the bigger sign. So 25 minus 11 is 14, and 25 is bigger, so negative 14. How do we get rid of divide by 2? Multiply by 2. Awesome. What I do to one side, I must do to both. So I have 2 over 2n is equal to 14 times 2 is 28. A positive and a negative is, negative 28. And 2 over 2 is just 1. So 1n equals negative 28. All right. Did you get that right? If not, did you see what you did wrong? Awesome. All right. So 9. We have 14 minus n equals 2. So I'm going to go ahead. I have minus n. I'm going to put plus a negative. So I know there's a negative attached to that n. So in order to get rid of addition, we're going to subtract. And the other thing it does, it 1 attaches the negative to n, and 2, you try to add 14 because you saw a subtraction. 14 plus 14 is 28, and it doesn't get rid of anything. So when you see that subtraction, I would go ahead, say plus a negative, so you know what you're getting rid of. Because having to say minus a negative and turn it to addition is a lot easier than trying to add 14 and not actually canceling anything out. All right, so I have minus 14 on both sides. 14 minus 14 is 0, so I know I did that right. So now all I have left is negative n. It's equal to 2 minus 14, which is the same as plus a negative. I have a positive and a negative I'm subtracting, so I'm going to subtract and keep the bigger sign because I have a positive and a negative that I'm adding. When I do that, I'm actually subtracting, so I'm going to subtract and keep the bigger sign. 14 minus 2 is 12. 14 is bigger, so it's negative 12. And then I have negative n is equal to negative 12. Is that what you got? If that's what you got, it's wrong. Did anyone else get something different? All right, so we have negative n is equal to negative 12. I do not want to know what negative n is. I want to know what regular positive n is. So negative n, we know that these all have 1, assume a 1 in front of it. It's like saying whatever n is times negative 1. So to get rid of times negative 1, we can divide both sides by negative 1. And negative 1 times negative 1 is positive 1. So 1n, or n, is equal to 12 divided by 1 is 12. And 2 negatives is going to give me a positive. So negative n is equal to negative 12, but positive n is equal to positive 12. Awesome. Did you get that? If you didn't, was it the sign at the end there? Awesome. So I have 3/4 n. So 3/4 times n minus 19 equals negative 1. So again, 2-step equations, we know we have to work our order of operations backwards. So in order to get rid of subtraction, because addition and subtraction are bottom last steps, we're going to add, because addition is our inverse of subtraction. So add 19 on the left, add 19 on the right. So I'm left with 3/4 n, because minus 19 plus 19 cancels, equals negative 1 plus 19. A positive and a negative, we're really subtracting and keeping the bigger sign. 19 minus 1 is 18. 19 is bigger, so it's positive. All right, so I have 3/4 times n. We know that we need to divide to get rid of multiplication, but we also learned with our rational one-step equations that we talked about that in order to divide by a fraction, it's the same as multiplying by the reciprocal. Reciprocal means that fraction flips. So I'm going to go ahead and multiply both sides times 4/3, because that 3/4 flipped. 4/3. You could go ahead and multiply it out. We know 4 times 3 is 12, and 3 times 4 is 12. So 12/12 n, and 12/12. If you have 12 parts of a 12-piece something, you have all 12 parts, which is 1 whole, is equal to, you can either multiply this across, or I'm gonna go ahead and show you to cancel out our diagonals so that we can simplify beforehand. If you multiply it across, you just have to simplify after, but this way we can multiply smaller numbers. So in order to simplify a multiplication problem, we talked about this on Monday and Tuesday when we were doing some of that least common multiples. I showed you when you're multiplying fractions, this diagonal thing, but let me show you one more time. So if I want to simplify a multiplication problem before I have my answer, I'm going to look at those diagonals of the two different numbers I'm multiplying and say, do these two numbers share a factor? Factor is a number that multiplies to give me either of these two numbers. They do. 3 is a factor of 3, because 3 multiplies to give me 3, and 3 is a factor of 18, because 3 also multiplies to give me 18. So I know to get 3, I had to multiply 3 times 1. So 3 divided by that factor of 3 is 1. 18 divided by that factor of 3 is 6. So now I really have 6 over 1 times 4 over 1. 6 times 4 is 24. And 1 times 1 is just 1. So 24 over 1. So I have 12 over 12n equals 24 over 1. You multiply it across 18 times 4 and 1 times 3. You would get 1 times 3 is 3. 18 times 4 is 72. You'd divide that by 3 and you'd still get 24. So either way, and then 12 divided by 12 is 1n is equal to 24 over 1. You can drop the 1. So 1n is 24 or simply n is 24. Awesome. All right, so we have 60% of a number. You can put parentheses. You don't need to because multiplication, then subtraction. Minus 17 is negative 65. Again, backwards order of operations start at the bottom. Addition and subtraction we get rid of first. So to get rid of minus 17, we're going to add 17. Add 17. Minus 17 plus 17 cancel. So then we have 0.6 n equals a positive and a negative. We're adding, so we're really going to subtract and keep the bigger sign. So 15 minus 7 is 8. We have to borrow. 5 minus 1 is 4. 65 is bigger, so it's negative 48. Then we're going to go ahead and divide both sides by 0.6. Well, 0.6 divided by 0.6 is simply 1n. And 40, so ignore our signs. I have 48 divided by 0.6. Ignore your signs. 48 divided by 6, 7. So I know it's 7. So you could work it out and say, move your decimal 1 to the right, 1 to the right. So we know it's 7, but then we know we have an extra 0. Because, or you could have done that, yeah, here without actually writing it out. We move it 1 to the right, so you move it 1 to the right here. So for 6 goes into 48 7 times, plus your 0. 1n is equal to 70. Oops, it is 6 into 48. I knew I was looking at it and I was like, that doesn't look right. 6 goes into 48 8 times. So again, you could have worked it out or seen 6 goes into 48 8 times, which is 80, or moved your decimal. All right, either way, you were moving the decimal, whether you did it in the division problem or did it here in the equation, and then in your head said 6 goes into 48 8 times, and then 1 0, either way. And then I have a positive and a negative, so it's negative 80. Awesome. All right, so last one, 14, because we are skipping squared ones until we work through squared problems. I have the quotient of, oh, I almost missed 13. So go ahead, write this down if you need to, so I don't forget 13. Okay, so you should already pause it and written it down. And 13 and 14, these are our second type of two-step equations. Remember, with two-step equations, we are working our order of operations backwards, but I told you this division line makes a group out of our top portion. And in order of operations, parentheses come first. So if we are working this backwards, I don't know why those got erased. If we are working these backwards, parentheses comes first, so parentheses are going to come last. So this is like your exception, your second way to look at it. We're getting rid of parentheses last, so before getting rid of those parentheses, I need to get rid of that division. So to get rid of division, I'm going to multiply both sides by 3 here. And negative 3 over negative 3, you could say negative 3. Let me erase this. Or actually, can I move this? Not that, this. I'm just trying to move it and not erase. All right, move this. Not that. No, it will not. All right, so I'm gonna erase it and I'll rewrite it. So we're gonna multiply both sides by that negative 3. So you could say negative, it always doesn't want to work right. Negative 3 over negative 3 times n plus 7. And negative 3 over negative 3 is 1, so 1 times n plus 7 is just n plus 7 equals 2 times negative 3. 2 times 3 is 6, positive and negative is a negative. So equals negative 6 equals negative 6. And then we just have n plus 7 equals negative 6. Because n plus 7 times 1 is just n plus 7. So let's rewrite this. N plus 7 equals negative 6. We get rid of addition with subtraction. Minus 7 plus a negative. 2 negatives become a bigger negative. Plus 7 minus 7 cancel. So n plus a negative is negative 6, negative 7, negative 13. Awesome. Did you get that? Did you try to get rid of that addition first? Remember, back to our we did those. Our two-step equations. That top half is like a parentheses. You've grouped it. We get rid of groupings last. Awesome. All right, I'm going to erase this, but 15 is still squared. Oops, I erased too much. I'm going to erase this, not the equation. This, but again, you're skipping squares. So we have same thing, n minus 5 is our grouping over 6 is equal to negative 4. So same process. That top is a parentheses. We get rid of parentheses last because it comes first in order of operations and we're going backwards. So we get rid of division first by multiplying. So 6 over 6, n minus 5 equals negative 4. 6 over 6 is 1, so n minus 5, we're going to drop our 1, equals negative 4. We get rid of subtraction with addition. And n is equal to negative and a positive. Subtract, keep the bigger sign, 1. Awesome. All right, so our goal for today was that you can translate 1- and 2-step equations. A big part of this is recognizing these keywords and phrases and using them to turn them into equations. And then you should be able to use your knowledge of 1- and 2-step equations that we learned last week and the week before and use that to solve them. So awesome. Please make sure you go in and do the work on this on Schoology. If you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, go ahead and do these on Schoology. Have a great day, guys. Bye.